Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews. We're an evangelical encounters the restoration. I'm your host, Stephen Peinecker, and I'm very excited about this guest that I have on. Now, last June, I was out in Utah for the Mormon History Association. And that Sunday, Sandra Tanner opened up her bookstore for me and Rick Bennett. And we visited for like 3.5 hours, just basically off the record, great conversation. But I remember Sandra goes to me and says, and I'm sure she said your name because she said, "Do you know Allison Biggers?" And I said, "No." I said, "Well, she's doing something very similar to what you're doing." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Well, she's befriending people. She's making friends with people." And I think that's what Sandra saw early on in what I was doing. So I remember just throughout the summer, I'd be like, I wonder about that girl in Utah. Wonder if she's watching my program. And I kind of just had you in the back of my head. And then last fall, you reached out to me, and we've become fast friends. And yeah. Allison Biggers, I just want to welcome you to Mormon Book Reviews.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me. And you extended an invite last year, and I was hesitant. And now I just feel like God is telling me to finally share my story. For so long, I felt like I didn't have a story, that my stories were a combination of everyone that I have walked beside. But recently I've realized I do have a story, and the Lord's prompting me to finally tell it. So thank you.
I'm really glad you're doing this. And just before we get started, folks, I got to do some shameless promoting. The merch store is open. So go to MormonBookReviews.com and you can get hats. You can get, oh, look at the green screen. That's with my hat. I just realized that. So we got hats. We got coffee mugs. Look at that. That's so awesome. Thank you very much, Allison, for purchasing a coffee mug.
I am a shameless fangirl of Mormon Book Reviews and Stephen Peinecker.
Well, thank you so much. So either way, MormonBookReviews.com, the merch store is open. So thanks for buying that cup. That really helps, and I greatly appreciate it. So this is really cool, where you're kind of one of the most interesting things that I have found is that when I started this channel, people started coming out of the woodwork who would describe themselves as never Mo fans of Mormonism or the Book of Mormon. And in one sense, you could say that you're one of those people. So that's what I love about you, is you have this great story to tell. And so I want you to tell your story. And let's kind of start from the beginning. Let's go, you're originally from Tennessee.
Yes.
And I want you to maybe just tell us a little bit about your background, and then how you started encountering Mormonism.
Awesome. Yes, I was born and raised in Memphis. Suburb outside of Memphis would be Germantown. And excuse me, that coffee was good. And one of my best friends growing up was LDS. And we lived in a neighborhood in a part of town where there were not many Mormons at all. And her parents, I came to find out that they converted from being Baptist to being LDS. And it just got me a little interested, and I was young-ish. I was probably like what do they call it now, tween. I was like definitely not a teenager yet, and I was Presbyterian, so that's what church my family went to. And I just formed an everlasting friendship with my friend and her family that way. And it's continued today. I just adore them. I would say that over the years, it's just been fascinating as a teenager to kind of watch my friend in school. Every once in a while, people would slightly bring up polygamy in front of my friend, and my friend, I could tell, didn't really have an answer, and I got very defensive when I watched her try to, as best she could, defend her faith. I could tell it embarrassed her, and she didn't quite know what to say. And I remember this was probably like a junior and senior in high school, and I shut it down. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Leave her alone. You have no clue what you're talking about. They don't do that anymore. The church doesn't do that anymore. And so it's so funny that even as a late teen, I was just staunchly protective over my friend and her faith. Yeah, that's how.
Fascinating. Yeah, one of the things you had mentioned to me before was that her family was they were converted from the Southern Baptist Convention to Presbyterianism. Maybe talk about the dynamics within her family. Weren't there some tensions and issues in her family when they converted?
Yes, from what I understand, and for their privacy, and I hope they do see this. I do recall walking into their home one day, and her grandfather called, who was still Baptist, and there were some hushed conversation in front of me between her mother and my friend. And essentially what happened was the grandfather meant well, but his conversation with his daughter, which is my friend's mother, was not conducive to ongoing conversation and dialogue. Instead, it ended up causing a huge rift. I don't know, huge rift. I don't want to speak for them, but it caused a period of discord in the family. And I just remember thinking, this breaks my heart. Why do I'm going to put the word evangelical, you and I talked, evangelical can mean such a broad range of beliefs and whatnot. So I'm going to throw the Baptist denomination in with the evangelicals, and the Baptists that are watching, go ahead and, get mad in the comments. That's fine. I'm a big girl. I can handle it. But there was not a bonding on Christ. Instead, there was a ripping away and ripping apart the rather new faith that my friends and her family had embraced. And it broke my heart. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. Why are the evangelicals, why are this man or, the church, whatnot, why are they not extending an olive branch for Christ? Yes, their doctrines now and beliefs of God, or, Jesus being our brother and God being a man in flesh. Yeah, that's completely different from being a Southern Baptist, but that's what they believe now. So let's have some respect and love. It's just, and I know he meant well, but it just frustrated me even as a teen. So.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I was having a conversation with a pastor in Nevada the other day, just kind of getting to know him, because he comes from Mormon background, but he's a minister. He's a Christian minister, and his father's a Christian minister. And I guess his mother's a Mormon, and so he's got Mormons in the family. But as I'm talking to this guy, he has these really, really, really strong opinions about Mormonism, but he doesn't really know much about it. And it's like he's basically spouting off a lot of God maker stuff. It's almost like, and I'm just like, I was telling my friend who was in on the call, I said, I don't know if you should have strong opinions about stuff you really don't know much about. And I've realized that as I know a lot, I have less and less strong opinions. It's almost like as you know more about a subject, it actually humbles you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so what's that?
It should, that you should, I think you should get to a point in your knowledge and growth, as far as what we do, where you are in a position to always be teachable.
Exactly. Yep. And I tell people, in order to be a teacher, you need to be teachable. And that's the most important thing, because you miss out on things. If you really think you'll have all the answers, you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff. And I even I pulled out the Songs of Zion hymn book and told them about the Church of Jesus Christ and how this miraculous hymn book comes out. And I would have never, ever had the opportunity to hear this wonderful story about this church if I had that attitude of putting up barriers. And I think that that's a lot, what happens is these a lot of these evangelicals put up these barriers, and they miss out on a lot.
Yes, and it just, I think 100%, I think that they mean well. I don't think there's vindictiveness in them, but the way that it's gone about is not something that I can stand on the sidelines and say, rah, rah, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
More of, I feel like Jesus, I think he's got the famous image that's all over the internet, but it's true. I believe Jesus is up there going, oh, do you have to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very true. So I think that, I don't know, I've just learned so much while on this journey. And of course, you learned a lot on this journey too. Now I want to talk just a little bit about yourself. So you're from Tennessee, and you were actually a DJ for a while, like on a top 40 radio station.
I come from a family that was in country radio. I knew nothing different. Growing up, my father was, he started a radio station. He was just, an incredible guy in his career. Just wonderful in his career. Everyone thought very highly of him. He started all kinds of radio stations, and he was a broadcasting consultant. When I was in high school, at the time, we lived in Memphis, and there was a position opened for a weekend disc jockey. That's what they were called in the 90s, okay? 98, 99, they were called disc jockeys. Now everything is all on, satellite. So, which did a lot for people that actually went to work every single day. That didn't help their income, but I was able to snag a part-time job. I did some during the day on the weekend, but I mainly did the overnight shift as a teenager, and I loved it. Let me tell you, the graveyard shift brings out some interesting folks calling to request music.
Absolutely.
It was a great experience, and I thought for a long time that this is what I want to do. I want to work in country radio. I want to work in the music business. And I even went to school at MTSU for music business, and I just stalled. I was not successful in getting into the classes, and I went through a period of depression, very lost, very confused for a long time. And, I fast forward many years later, I ended up working as a sales rep on Music Row for probably arguably one of the top 5 radio stations in the world for country. I was pretty good at it, but I didn't like it. Every month, you have to start over with a quota, and it was just like, I just didn't care for it. It just wasn't for me, and I'm glad it didn't work out, because
interesting. What's that?
What you think you want is, for the most part, not what God wants until you find out later in life. I mean, some people can figure it out early and then they're just good with it, but yeah.
I'm a total geek about radio stuff, so I'm glad that you shared that with me. So you have an interesting background. Again, you're in the middle of the Bible Belt. There really aren't a whole lot of LDS folk, except for your friend. And yet he had an interest, and of course you're defending your friend, so you have a bit of an interest in it. Let me ask you, just before we talk about really delving into it, how much about Mormonism did you read about, like while you were a tween and in high school, in regards to your friend? Did you do much research?
Not a lot. Not a lot. Not a lot. Enough to know that the first vision of Joseph Smith, seeing the Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ did not line up with what I was taught in the Bible. Not that they were at all proselytizing to me. I just was asking questions, and I didn't know my quote unquote scriptures. I would call it Bible, but here they call it scriptures. I knew them well enough to know that, in my opinion, so I'm not trying to bash on the faith, but in my belief system, that would never happen. So I was never drawn to wanting to go or anything like that. But my friend did tell me within the last few years that I did attend a young women's event where we made apple pie, which sounds like a perfect young women's activity. She remembers it. I do not. So she's probably right.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. So I guess I want to ask you, so was there anything in the era of the 90s that you want to cover before we transition into your starting to get interested in Mormonism?
No, Heaven's Gate fascinated the heck out of me. That was the beginning of just broadening what all I wanted to know about religion, but not the stereotypical Christian Protestant religion. Like, that really opened my mind. I couldn't get enough reading about it. So years later, when I find out Randy Bell is so, intricately involved, I'm just geeking out. Like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It wasn't cool at the time, and it was awful. The mass suicide of it was awful. But other than that, that's kind of when I started my interest in religions that weren't Protestant.
Got it. That's interesting. Oh, that's good. Okay. So, in the early 2000s, you started getting interested a little bit more in Mormonism. Maybe talk a little bit what caused you to delve into it.
Let's see. I do recall that I specifically remember this. I believe it was in 2002 when CNN, I believe, was like the only news station. I was in my dorm room, and I got alerted on the screen. They did a quick video of these people whose prophet had died, and they were fundamentalist Mormons. Now, before everyone starts saying, well, you're fundamentalists, no. These were the FLDS. And yes, their attire, their dress, 100% attracted to me to figure out what in the world is going on. And Rulon had died, and they showed footage of everyone going to the funeral. And I just couldn't get enough. And I walked over. These were the old days, where you had an actual big computer. And I walked over in my dorm room, and I typed in all this information, and I just fell down the rabbit hole of what specifically the founding church believed. And in that, I started to learn more about plural marriage. I couldn't get enough of it. And it would wane off and on through the years, but that was just extremely fascinating to me.
So was it around this time that you had mentioned like a book like Shattered Dreams, and also Out of Mormonism? Those were kind of books that kind of informed you at this time?
Yes, Shattered Dreams is a book about the LeBaron group in Mexico. I think that came out around 2005 or 2007. There's another book that I read, and it fascinated the heck out of me. Nobody ever talks about it, but it's really good. And it's called Out of Mormonism. And let's see what the author is. Robertson is the author, Judy Robertson. And in this, she really dives deep into the culture of what it's like if she lived in Utah or not. I think she did. Anyway, just the culture of living a life in the church and questioning and wanting to leave and everything that's entwined with that. And it was just super fascinating to me. But at the time, I did not have, Deseret Book is not in. At this time, I lived in Nashville, and Deseret Book was not anything that we had there, and access to a lot of positive things about the church was not readily available in Nashville, Tennessee. So I got my hands on everything I could.
So a lot of the stuff you would have probably or a lot early on in my, exploration of Mormonism, a lot of it would have been anti-Mormon stuff that you would have first had easier access to. And the same thing happened to you?
Yes, and I just take everything with a grain of salt. So it's not that I don't believe someone, but I do want to get both sides of the story. That's still extremely important to me. Let's get both sides. And then I, as someone that's, absorbing the content, I can make up my decision on what I believe. And yeah. I mean, we didn't have the internet then. No, we did, but not, convenient, right? Or even a Kindle. I don't even know if Kindles were really available or affordable.
Yeah.
So
you don't have access to the same. Yeah. So it was a minimal amount of information. So for me, I was doing a little bit earlier than you when I really started delving into it. Of course, I had to go to the library to get all my information, and now because very little was online that you could actually get. But I mean, I would check out the Encyclopedia of Mormonism set every, and just read that. So you've got some interesting stuff back behind you, by the way. I mean, you actually have the Encyclopedia of Mormonism in your bookshelf?
Oh yeah, I think I do. I think I do, but I have all kinds of stuff. I'm sure a lot of my fundamental friends can recognize. I've got tons of stuff on there from, celestial marriage, like certain book sets. I've got all kinds of goodies. I have my two bookends are Brigham Young and Joseph Smith. And I've got the original Mormon doctrine book. I don't know if it's up there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, cool. Is that the first edition?
It's the first edition.
Oh,
Second.
wow.
I wasn't quite sure after I got it, but then I called Sandra and she's like, no, you got the good one. You got the good one. I was like, sweet. Good. I have the Gold Book of Mormon. I have all kinds of really nerdy things, and
awesome.
I have
that little character on the.
It's a Porter Rockwell bobblehead doll.
Awesome, love it.
Because why not?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
that's great. So I think this is awesome because, of course, we, as I said in the intro, people being fans. What does that mean? Well, because it's just a genuinely interesting subject, and so people come out of the woodwork and start telling me similar stories, and even people, and I think you even mentioned this to me, that like when I had mentioned like how Mormonism saved my life, that it was even in the deep dark depression that I would be studying Mormonism was like the only thing that was keeping my interest. Did you have a similar experience as well?
I did. Not as deep as yours, but I too struggle from depression and anxiety and all that fun stuff. But over the years, that was what I clung to. I don't have an admirable thought of Joseph Smith. So, and your Mormon Stories interview, which was fantastic, that's where I thought, nah, I don't agree with him on that. But I do agree with the fascination. It's like Scientology. It's like, people say that Mormonism and Scientology are similar, which, by the way, I did study Scientology for years out of interest, not to join. And the thing about Scientology is it only goes so deep and then you stop. Mormonism, there's always something new that's uncovered. It's always changing. And it's fascinating. So I clung to learning about the policies, procedures, history, and, even up until today, like I still get magazines from the church and LDS Living. I want to know what's going on. So
That's great.
yeah.
I think that's wonderful. And I think that's the right approach. And so you really started delving into it around the year 2011, and it actually even had to do with some of your education. Maybe just talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure. Absolutely. I took a break from college. I don't know. I feel like most people took a break. I don't know. Good for you if anybody finishes in 4 years without taking a break, because I did not. And at 31, I went back. Ooh, I have an Alice Cooper story, by the way.
Oh, good.
I have to tell you about that. So at 31, I went, who, by the way, was raised Mormon, Alice Cooper. I worked at Target, and I thought, this is ridiculous, Allison. Go back to school, get your degree, whatever it's meant to be in. I knew it was going to be in sociology, but just go back to school and get your degree. So I was 31, and real fast, because I will forget, I have ADD. One very early Sunday, this man came in, and I was over the front end of the registers, and this is in Nashville. Okay, so seeing Sheryl Crow and Tim and Faith, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, like everything was really, that wasn't a big deal, because you saw them everywhere. But this man walked in really early, and I radioed a gentleman, and I said, and I just had to say it. I said, guys, I got to be honest with you. This guy came in. He must have had a really long night last night. His hair is jet black. He's got eyeliner all over his face. This guy, God bless him, because that's what we say in the South. I said, God bless him. He looks like he's Alice Cooper. I just feel bad for the guy. And because I radioed one of the managers, and at the time they had a floor where they could look out on top of the store. And my coworker said, well, it actually may be, because he lives here and he's part owner of the Predators hockey team. And I thought, there's no way that's Alice Cooper. And it absolutely was. And I just thought that was hilarious. And within 10 minutes after he checked out, people were swarming at him. And it was crazy. And I had to literally usher him out of the store on a Sunday morning. And just the nicest guy. He looked at my name tag, and he said, when he was walking out the door, he said, looked at my name tag. He's like, Allison, thank you so much, Allison. No problem, Mr. Cooper.
That's great. Well, this is
nice guy, really nicest guy.
One of my favorite things about Mormonism is folklore. Now, one of the things I want to bring up to you is that you actually gave us some Mormon folklore, which was that Alice Cooper was a Mormon. Well, that's only partially true.
Oh.
Alice Cooper, he came from the Church of Jesus Christ, based out of Monongahela, Pennsylvania. His grandfather was the president of the church, and his father is an evangelist. I call them the Pentecostal Mormons. So a lot of people think that Alice Cooper was Mormon, but he actually was part of the Church of Jesus Christ.
So not a mainstream Mormon.
Right.
A part of a different.
Yep.
I don't think sect is the right word, but a completely different church in and of itself.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I just learned something. You just schooled me.
Yeah, so I hope to get Alice on, because of course Alice Cooper is now an evangelical born again Christian.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and so I like to tell my Mormon friends. I said he went from Team Restoration to Team Evangelical. So nobody's ever asked Alice Cooper about he goes on Christian television and gives his testimony, but they never ask him about his being part of the Church of Jesus Christ. And so that's why I want to get him on, is because I think it would just be absolutely fascinating to have him being raised in a Book of Mormon believing church, and then becoming Alice Cooper, and then becoming a born again Christian.
That blows my mind. I did not know that. You just schooled me on this. I had no clue. Thank you.
This is fun.
Well, you have to be teachable.
That's right. That's right. So, so you basically, then go back to school, and you said you took a break, and and then actually Mormonism plays a major role in your education. So just talk about that.
Yeah. So before I went back to school around that time, I started to dive into the culture of Mormonism, mainly out here in Utah and, Idaho and whatnot, because the church in different parts of the country is so different than out here. And I just couldn't get enough of reading. There was a board called Recovery from Mormonism. So, and it was titled RFM, which is weird because now when people talk about RFM, they talk about literally the dude RFM, right? The man, right? One of the goats. And, but before then, all I knew was RFM, the message board. And I just immersed myself in learning from women on the Baby Center, which is all women. And I went to the devout, hardcore Orthodox page, and I just read, and I'm very much like you. I was like a sponge, and I couldn't get enough of it. And when I went back to school, all of my classes were centered around Mormonism, and the teachers loved it. Mainly, I think one of my last years I did a statistics class on the Romney versus Obama. I think that's what he ran against, and clearly I guess I can't remember because he lost. But I did, stats on that, and I did a semester study on Warren Jeffs and the FLDS, and all the teachers would love it. And I presented at a couple symposiums because I wasn't trying to be salacious. This was way before he was ever convicted and put in jail, like finally put in jail. So this was new to everybody. Everyone just thought, here's this girl coming back to college, and she's presenting all of this information. And unfortunately, as soon as you pop up an image of 50 women in pastel clothing looking up at Warren Jeffs, it draws your attention. And I just immersed myself in that, as well as Blacks in the priesthood. That was another topic. I didn't do much of it. It was mainly focused around Mormonism. I had a couple girls in the class that were LDS, and during the presentation, I kept looking at them like, this is good, right? Am I doing a good job? They're like, you're doing great. Yep, everything's right. Okay. So yeah, it was fun. It was so fun. Very encouraging environment. And I just kept getting bitten by the bug of the fascination in history and what's currently going on in the church. I just couldn't get enough of it.
You presented a paper, right, about it as well?
I did. I presented 2 different papers. Maybe it was one at 2 seminars, but it was all about the fundamental, the FLDS in Colorado City and Hilldale and the Crick, and like that's who I focused on. That's what I focused on. That's because that all stems back from my initial interest when Rulon Jeffs died, Warren Jeffs' father. That's how it did almost a full circle, actually 10 years later. And I was able to tie everything in there. And it was just, such a passion. And I did a little bit of master's degree. And I realized that my advisor said, oh, you want to help people during a crisis of faith? You want to listen to people? that's what you want to do? And he said, I got to tell you, getting a master's in sociology, it's not going to be beneficial. Like, you maybe need to get a degree in counseling and that kind of thing. And I thought, well, that's fruitless, because this is not what I want to do as far as taking the time to get a degree in something that I don't think I need a degree in. And I didn't, not a master's degree. So
and just a little after this time, you actually come across this book called Unveiling Grace by Lynn Wilder. And then so just maybe talk about how that impacted you.
Yeah. So after I graduated, I think her book came out in I think maybe, I don't know. I have it right here, of course.
2013, I think.
2013. Okay. So I read it, and, great timing, perfect timing. I loved it. I think beside from the Bible, anybody that is questioning the church should read it, especially women. I just think it's fantastic. And after I read it, I thought, oh, well, maybe I'm supposed to convert people. Maybe I'm supposed to help people get the heck out of the church. That's what I'm supposed to do. I get it, God. That's what you want me to do. And boy, real fast, I thought, first of all, I just thought that's a lost cause. The Holy Spirit just really convicted me. I'd say within a week or maybe even a few days, it was really clear that because I was never Mormon, what I thought was my greatest weakness was actually my biggest strength, because I was told by the Lord, no, Allison, you're not Mormon for a reason. You're not in the church for a reason. Your job is to listen, and there's no converting. There's no trying to get people out. That's not your job. That's not what I want from you. I want you to listen with all of the knowledge that you have gained over the years, especially with the culture. You listen. And that's what I'm doing.
Listening.
So
this is great. And then this is when you really start amping things up in this period of time. So you start taking trips to Salt Lake City. You then you go to Nauvoo. Maybe just talk about that journey.
Yeah, in 2014, I just thought I've got to get out to Utah. Like, my husband and I, we've got to start visiting Utah. I couldn't get enough. I'm like, I've got to go. And as soon as we touched down, it felt like my soul belonged here. It was a very powerful visit to Temple Square. I just felt like these are my people. I couldn't get enough of the culture. People complain a lot about the culture of Mormonism, and I understand that, but I also feel that there's so much of the culture that is so wonderful and such a rich history here, and the pioneers, all the way back from Kirtland and all that. It's such a rich history that I remember one time we visited, I think, about 2 times every single year. Every time my husband would say, where do you want to go this year on vacation? And I would say, and he said, you want to go to Salt Lake, don't you? And I was like, yes. And Mike being such a great husband, we did keep coming, and we would meet more people and more people. And I remember one day we were at Orem at the Deseret bookstore, and I saw this piece of art, and it was not church related. It wasn't a religious art piece. It was a picture called, I think it was called The Difficult Lesson. And it was a girl, and she was sitting on some stairs, and she was reading some books. And she had her finger on, a little book, and she just kind of looked at, the focal point of the picture. And it just really spoke to me, because she was thinking, I don't know about this. Or she was thinking, yeah, this is interesting. And it just really spoke to me. And we splurged and we bought it. We still have it. And when we were checking out, we had spent some time with this woman. This is one of the coolest stories. We were spending some time with a woman who was helping us. And I don't know if they get a commission or not, but we were friendly. We had a Southern accent. She was talking to us. And when we were checking out, I did not realize that I was wearing a cross. I did not know that. And I do not wear crosses a lot here, because it kind of is a silent barrier for conversation. I just don't do it. And, Jesus and I are good on that. He understands why I don't do it. I do it for a reason. But I didn't realize I was wearing a cross, but it was hidden by my shirt. So she didn't know. And I didn't feel a need to tell her that I wasn't in the church. And when we were checking out, she was filling out all my information. And she said, well, whereabouts do you live in Tennessee? And I told her, and she said, oh, that is amazing. My daughter is moving to that same town, which is small town outside of Nashville. And she said, I said, well, it's close to the temple. The Nashville temple is not far from where I live. And she said, well, this just makes me so happy. Do you mind if I write down your number and information so that my daughter can call you when she moves to town? Because that way she can have a friend. And I said, well, sure. And she was writing down my information. And she said, what ward are you in? And I said, oh, I'm not LDS. And she was writing, and she said, but you're so nice.
That's great.
That was worth the entire trip right there. And all of my friends, when I tell them that, or when I've told them that, they say that is so embarrassing. And I said, no, if anything, it showed me even more that there needs to be more diversity here, so that people realize that, we're not all, the boogeymen, right? If we're not in the church. And then her response was, have you read the Book of Mormon? And I said, yeah. My husband Mike's behind me, and he said, she's got a lot of books. And she just couldn't get over it. I think it really bothered her soul. I respect that, but I thought that was hands down one of the most coolest experiences. But you're so nice.
That's great. Did you ever get in touch with the daughter? Did the daughter get? Oh, yeah.
But it was worth the price of admission. It was just the coolest thing, because it was hilarious. So
I love it. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And again, you and I are unicorns. There aren't a whole lot of us, although they're coming out of the woodwork now, which is cool. And again, I think what's happening here is we're building an alternative network of Christians who are taking a different approach to Mormonism and the Restoration, one of friendship and one of trying to be Christ-like as opposed to be confrontational.
I agree. And yeah, I 100% agree. That's been my mission from day one, even when I, read the Unveiling Grace book, which I still recommend. I just knew that I had to approach things from a conversational standpoint. But, again, really quickly, I just learned that there was no bad experience that made me learn that that's not the approach. But, the Holy Spirit just really very gently said, I don't think that's for you, Allison. I don't want you to do that.
That's great.
I created you to listen. So
love it. So there are a few things that happen. Of course, you took the trip to Nauvoo, but also you in 2015 you also took a trip to Colorado City in 2016. Maybe touch on one of those and maybe go where that kind of puts you on a different trajectory?
Sure. So because I had studied and done so much work on studying the people in the fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so where Warren Jeffs is the prophet, because I had done so much work, I don't even know how it happened. But the next thing I know, in 2016, I'm on the phone with Lindsay Hansen Parker, who I just messaged on Facebook. Within maybe an hour, she's calling me saying, I can get you hooked up. No problem. I've got someone there. Shout out to Andrew Chatwin, by the way, who is the coolest guy. We love you, Andrew. And he met up with us, and Lindsay orchestrated the entire meeting, and after that, the entire friendship. And I was able to go and tour all these places that I had written about and studied about for years. And it was just a really precious experience for the community to open their doors to strangers. So
fascinating.
Yeah.
And so you actually got to meet and talk with FLDS folk?
Yes, a little bit. The people at the time, I guess now it's 2022, but at the time there were more FLDS that lived there, but I didn't really have a lot of interaction with them. I had more interaction with people who were like apostatized, but we met a couple that were one of the lead people to bring charges against Warren Jeffs, and just incredible people, incredible community, extremely brave, and I respect them all despite a belief or differences of belief. I respect and love them, Yeah.
Before I get to your trips, started taking your trips to Nauvoo, do we want to talk about snake handling now, or do we want to talk about it later?
Let's do it later.
Okay, so start telling me, because you had told me, I remember one of the first things you told me when we first did our first Zoom, it says, when I die, I want my ashes spread in Nauvoo.
You remember that?
Of course.
Okay, here's the story. Here's the story of lovely lady. So it was in early 2015. I had a friend of mine who said, you've got to go to Nauvoo. You've got to go to Nauvoo. And we were in Tennessee, and the drive was probably 9 hours. And I thought, why not? Why not? We'll make a day trip out of it. It was very last minute. And we rolled into Nauvoo, and we passed the Nauvoo sign. On the drive, if anybody's been to Nauvoo, you drive past the Mississippi River, and my husband and I held hands, and we usually don't do this a lot. We just felt like we needed to pray together on this, to this extent. And we held hands, music was playing, and, we said, Lord, we don't know why you want us here. You've made it possible for us to make this trip. Let it be known why you want us to be here. Let us be of use to you. So we drove in, and I went to check into the hotel, and it was attached to a store, like a gift shop. I don't want to say a museum, but it was mainly like a gift shop for people that would come through town. And to get your hotel key, you had to stand in line and go into the shop.
Okay.
And there was a line that formed, and I had to wait in the line. And when I was in the line, I heard the woman that was checking people out, beautiful blonde woman, and she was telling someone that her son was on a mission. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, ask her about her son's mission. And I looked around, and I thought, well, I'd like to know how this is going to happen, Lord, because there's people all around me. How in the world are you going to make this happen? My turn to check out and get my room key. very nice lady. There's people behind me, and I walked away, and I thought, well, you didn't want that to happen, or that wasn't the time. I don't know, Lord. So we went next door, very close, put our stuff in the room, and I look outside and I see the store's closed. This was less than an hour later. The store's closing, and this blonde woman is walking to her car in front of the store, okay? That happens to be across from the temple, the Nauvoo temple, okay? And I thought, well, this is it. You better run down there, Allison. No one's around her. This is it. This is it. Run, and then act real casual walking by. And I said, oh, we've got our room. It looks great. It looks great. And she said, oh, I'm so glad you like it. And I said, yes. And I said, oh, I heard you talking in the store about your son who's on a mission. Now, where is he at? And then that led to a little bit more conversation. And she said, well, I'm fine. I'm happy about it. And she was talking a little bit more about her son. And she said, I'm okay with it as long as he's talking about Jesus Christ and not the church. Thought, well, that's kind of strange. And she said, so what are you folks doing here? Are you doing research? If this is your first time, do you have relatives that came here? And I said, nope, I am a religious studies sociologist, and I help people that are in a transition of faith that want to explore other options besides the church that they were raised in. And a lot of people just want to vent. I'm not out to convert anybody. I'm just out to listen and support. And she said, you're kidding me. She closes the car door. She walks around it and she says, my husband and I, we no longer believe in the church. And I just was like, this woman is talking to me. It turns out she owned the hotel, the store, and a good bit of Nauvoo. And she just came out to me as not even questioning. She has emotionally left. And I just couldn't believe it. I thought, well, that was an answer. Yeah, that was an answered prayer, like within an hour. I couldn't believe it. And we spoke for a little bit longer. We exchanged information, and that will always be the moment. And we're still friends, and that will always be the moment. They no longer live there anymore. And I won't say the name. I'm sure people can figure it out. That's her story to tell, by the way. But I have had permission to even share that, or I wouldn't have said anything. And to make a long story short, it was in front of the temple. And I thought, oh, okay, all right, Jesus, well played. That's what you want me to do. You want me to listen. And come to find out, again, I don't know if I just said it, but that was the first time she's ever vocally said that out loud to anyone.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting to me, Allison, is I have people reaching out to me throughout the world who don't have anybody else to talk to. Or I run into people, like last time I was flying out of Utah, I'm sitting next to a co-pilot who's heading to work for the airline. And we're sitting next to each other, and I start talking to him. He's from Idaho, and he said, yeah, I read Saints about a year and a half ago, and that checked me out of the church. A church publication. Even that had so much information in there for him that disturbed him. But a lot of these people, they don't have anybody to talk to. Like, he's not going to tell an LDS person that. But because, and so this is what's interesting, folks. Again, Allison and I, we're not here to try to get you out of the church. And we're just here to have conversations and listen to people. And we hear stories, and people feel comfortable to tell us stories that you're not able to hear because they're not comfortable to tell those stories. And so we're providing a sounding board for people. I do Zoom calls with people. It's almost like a counseling session sometimes. And I'm not qualified, but I'm in one sense maybe qualified in the sense that I'm willing to listen. And then, like you said, listening is the key thing in this whole endeavor. And, I think that's such an awesome story about what happened in Nauvoo. I mean, that really just, like you said, like, wow, like that's like one of those God moments, right?
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And my husband was with me. And when she drove away, we walked down the street. There was nobody there. It was not a traveling season. And my husband said, well, I believe the prayer was just answered. And I said, I just kept walking and I said, wow, wow, wow. It just so blew my mind. It was crazy. And like you just said, and I think I'll elaborate on this in a bit, but all these years of studying and not knowing, like you said on Mormon Stories, all these years that you spent, studying and not knowing, like, oh, Steve, it's like, oh, Allison, like, why in the heck am I spending all this time reading things, investing time in something that I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with this, God? Like, what do you want me to do with it? And it's all just paid off beautifully because I am safe. And again, I just told that story with someone. I'm sure she would be completely fine with me using her name, but I would rather not, in case it accidentally pops out of my mouth. She would still be fine with it. But it was just incredible. And I don't care if people stay in the church. If it makes you happy, you do you. But there's a lot of people that are in it. They're members and they need to vent. Well, I'm safe to vent to because I stay up on all the policies, the procedures, the history, everything. And I'm trustworthy. And I care. I genuinely care. My prayer is that, please, if you're going through a transition and you care to leave, please don't give up on God. But that's not my decision. That's between them. I don't tell people what to believe, or my job is to listen.
Okay. So being that we're Mormon Book Reviews, there's a few books that you had, like, in preparation for your Nauvoo experience. You read American Crucifixion.
Amazing. The audiobook is amazing. Most of that is centered around Nauvoo. Nauvoo polygamy is my favorite book. If you're into studying polygamy, I like it better than, sorry, Todd Compton, I like it better than In Sacred Loneliness, just because of the way it's written. Those would be my three that I would recommend, that I just delved in. When we go, I would go, let's see. We moved here in 2019. We've been a total of 7 times to Nauvoo. I would go to the pageants every summer, not to watch them, but just to mingle with the people and just to learn how they view things. And we would go every January in bitter cold to do the reenactments, and we were given names, and it was just so fun and so powerful. Yeah.
This is awesome. It's great because you were studying it, but then you've been engaging the people for a much longer period of time than I have. One of the things that really all I had were podcasts or YouTube personalities that I would watch, which would be like Mormon Stories of John Lynn and Rick Bennett's Gospel Tangents were my 2 guys, but also RFM. I listened to him. There were some podcasts that you would listen to, in particular John Larson, and also with Mormon Stories. Maybe just talk about the impact that the podcast played on your journey.
Well, it was before, I think I started listening to Mormon Expression. And I think when I started listening to them, or to John Larson, they were almost off the air, if not already off the air. They did a long time, and then John just said, I'm done. I've said all I need to say. And a friend told me about it, and I just devoured his podcast because John Larson is such an incredibly intelligent, critically thinking man. Wow, does he know history of church history, Utah church history. He's brilliant. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And I am proud to call him a dear friend of mine, which is a very unlikely pairing. I have some friends of mine that are in my community, and they're always surprised when I say that John Larson and I are friends. They're like, what? And I said, yeah, because I just adore him. And there's very much a mutual respect. And just shout out to John. He's on Mormon Stories, I believe once a month they bring him in. And now I'm not quite sure how it works, but now Mormon Stories is, I don't want to say carrying, but they're now hosting all of Mormon Expressions. So if you've never heard Mormon Expression, guys, go check it out. It's amazing. It's amazing. Now he does use, he doesn't have a John Dehlin mouth, so he is a bit colorful in language, but he's brilliant. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. And I should have him on. You know, I think we'd have a good conversation.
He's amazing. He's amazing. He's just amazing. I think he intimidates a lot of people, and he's just a gentle giant. I just love him. I love him. And we have completely different beliefs. And yeah.
That's great. You know, I want to, you had mentioned that there was a particular episode of Mormon Stories that really impacted you, kind of changed your life. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So great question, Steve. These are awesome. You're asking me some good ones. Let's see. So I would listen to Mormon Stories all the time back through like 2011 through, well, up until now. But in 2016, I was painting some furniture, and the episode was of Clay Christensen, and I believe his brother's name was Elgren, Matt Elgren. And this was the episode that changed, I believe, the trajectory of my life even more. They're brothers-in-law, and one of them had, I don't know if he technically left the church or not, but he had a crisis of faith, and I don't recall him having a lot of support in the family. But the bond between the two brothers-in-law were, if I recall correctly, video games. And over the years, the video games would be a connection, you know, again, connecting with people, finding commonalities, no matter if it's video games or what, find commonalities that you can connect on, not disagree on. And I recall the story that Clay had questions, and he was so scared to be able to get his brother-in-law alone because he wanted to ask him where he stood on some things. Why did he leave? What were his questions? And the way they got together was under the guise of video games. And when they got in person, I hope I'm recalling this right, but when they got in person, Clay, he just said, look, this is what I need to know. Why did you leave? And that was that. And when I heard that was it had to have been 2016, because that was after we had visited many times. I thought, okay, Dina, oh crap, I just said her name. It's okay. So the lady in Nauvoo, it's okay. She won't mind. She's told me to mention her name before, but I just haven't wanted to. So the woman in Nauvoo, and then directly showing that I need to listen, right? And then having this episode let me really see that, whoa, people need to vent in Utah. People need someone to talk to. Oh man, how am I going to do this? Oh, I'm in Tennessee. What am I going to do? But I just knew, I'm like, I need to be out there. My husband and I need to be out there, and not to convert people, to offer unconditional friendship and love, and to listen to people. So, and I just want to also say about John Dehlin, he does not have an easy job. I want to acknowledge his family for sacrificing years of essentially family time for him to do his work. His wife and children are amazing. I just thank the world of them for allowing and giving of their time with their husband and their father for other people's voices to be heard. And I love the Duin family. I just love them. So thank you, Margie and children. Thank you, John, but thank you, Margie and children.
Shout out. Yes, amen. I think that one of the things that really struck me was, I've been in contact with John Duin almost from within a month of me starting my channel. He took an interest in me. And so him and I would message each other now and then. And then after I landed the Bushman interview, I was on the phone with him. He wanted to talk. But I got to know him as a human being. And one of the most unfortunate things with him is that he's either a demigod or he's the devil in Utah, but he's actually a human being. And people, it's like they project so much onto him, whether they either really, really love him or they really, really hate him. And that's a very difficult place to be. And I just want to tell people, John Duin is a human being, just like the rest of us. And he's got flaws, just like Allison and I have. But I think it's important that, he's on a journey as well, and we need to honor his journey. And we also look, and I even told him, I told him, and I mentioned this in the Mormon Stories interview, I said, John, I think you're gonna be a pastor one day. And he laughs and jokes about it, but I think that he has a pastor's heart.
I do too. I wasn't planning on saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because usually I'm already an unconventional person, so I don't have anything to lose. We all may not agree with one another on so many things. People in, like you and I that are in the Never Mormon club that care about people, no matter what, their journey is or what their beliefs are. I understand all sides of people when they speak about John, because everyone's entitled to their opinion. But in my community out here, how do I phrase this? Because I really think it's important to say it. If you are associated with having connections with John Duin as a biblical Christian, that's a problem. It's a problem. And I've encountered it, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to come out about it. And it's a problem. And it's been a problem for me. And I don't care. I'm going to say it. I don't care. I would rather be in some areas kind of pushed off in some Christian communities as, John Duin, Mormon Stories, they're so liberal. I don't care, because this whole group of people are my family. I claim them. I claim them like you have been claimed by John as family. We all are not going to agree. But if you show support to John, I mean, Sandra Tanner's the GOAT, so she can get by with anything. But Mormon Stories will always have my vote, no matter what topics are told. I don't know. That's my little rant. So I think there needs more understanding and Christ-like love. I don't know. That's it.
That's great. I want to actually just address something, because you had mentioned this that ties into the whole idea of Utah Christian culture.
I'm being very vulnerable, by the way. So
yeah, and actually I think that's important to be. Look, so this is the problem that I think a lot of Christian ministries have, is they put up a facade, and they also they don't. I think it's important that we be transparent and we be vulnerable, and we are relational rather than confrontational.
100% agree. And I don't know, it's just such a fine line here, especially. I can only speak for someone that I moved here in 2019. I knew what I was getting into. I studied where exactly we were going to move. My husband and I did. But what I did not expect is how unique the Christian culture is here towards people in the church. And it's an attitude oftentimes of, we're better than you, and you guys don't know what you're doing. And look, I don't care if people think I'm going to what's the bottom level, Steve? It's not the terrestrial, it's
celestial.
Yeah, I don't care about that. I don't care. People can think that, doesn't matter a rip to me. What matters to me is that people that live here, that move out here, out of state, to come to, quote unquote, witness and convert people to biblical Christianity. You need to have some humility. And I think the idea of humility is rather non-existent out here. There's some ministries that I think are fantastic. Faith After Mormonism is one of them. Ross Anderson, Faith After Mormonism. They are fantastic. There needs to be some humility in my community, and they need to be just as teachable as they're asking the Mormons to be. And I don't see it happening. And that's where it's a problem. And yeah, it's a problem. So, and to be teachable, you have to be vulnerable. Well, vulnerability is really hard. Oh my gosh, you're going to get burned. You're going to get burned. You're being vulnerable. But that's what happens when you trust God. He's got a plan. That's what I believe. He's got a plan. And you just, I don't know, be teachable. It goes both ways. And to be teachable, you become trustworthy.
And you have also mentioned unconditional friendship. I like that.
Yeah. So people always say, so why did you move to Utah? Like, Utah? And we always run into retire out here, and all of it early 2019, along with a whole bunch of people. My husband lost his job, like out of nowhere. And on the ride home, one of us mentioned we have no children, and that's really abled us. I feel like I always have to say by choice, because everyone, especially in the community, is like, oh, no children, I'm so sorry. Well, we're good. We decided, it's now or never. Are we going to do this? Is this when God wants us to move out here? We moved out here not to convert people. We are, not to get people to believe what we believe. No. We came out here to offer what Utah is lacking, especially Utah Valley: unconditional friendship and love, no matter what you believe or don't believe. We want to be your friend and love you. So,
wow. One of the people that kind of came into your life and kind of had an impact on the I don't know, I call it the post-Mormon community, or just in general, was that you befriended Haley Everts.
Hallie.
Talk about that. Oh, I'm sorry. How
yeah, like Halle Berry. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I did ask her if she was okay with me using her name. And again, can I just show this off one more time, the mug?
Not a problem. As a matter of fact, I'll just put the hat on while you're drinking your coffee there. And we'll
go. There you go, brother.
Good.
So I had followed Hallie. She was on YouTube. She had written a book called Why I Left the Mormon Church and Came Back, because she was originally a convert. And I had just been following her for years on YouTube. And quite frankly, I thought she was a mess. I'm being honest. Now she knows. Now she knows how I felt. And I just thought, this is a train wreck waiting to happen. Her shelf the proverbial shelf, how, you put things on people that, they're not quite sure, they keep putting items on the shelf that they're not quite sure of. And, pretty much the shelf gets bent. And then what's going to happen to where it breaks,
Right.
where are you going to fall? And, the pandemic really, I had heard from a lot of people, but over the years, Hallie and I would write her little things, like a message about, like, one day she was selling, like, well, she wasn't selling, but it was like a link to something that she used. And I wrote her for a coupon code. And one day I said, if you're ever out in Utah, she lived in Arizona. I said, if you're ever out in Utah, I would love to take you to lunch. And I told her what I did, and she's like, oh, thank you. That's so nice. Yada, 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 like Seinfeld. And then in 2021 of April 1st, she did a Instagram post of her in a bikini, and it said, #great and spacious building. And I thought, oh, snap. What has happened? You don't joke about being in the great and spacious building on April Fool's Day if you're in the church. It's just not something that people would joke about. And I thought, whoa, this is going to be interesting. And within 5 minutes, she reached out and she said, don't you do something with religion and helping people? And I thought, here it comes. And I told her, and she immediately, I'll leave it at that, but we were on the phone within that night. And actually, after she reached out, or before she reached out, whatnot, I literally hit my knees and I said, Lord, I believe this is it. Please use me to the best of your ability. Let me just be of use however you want me to be. If it's for her to vent, if it's for her needing support leaving, whatever it is, use me. And he did. And then within about a month later, she was on Mormon Stories, and I did not want her to go on. 100% own the fact I did not want her to go on. I thought she's too new into her transition. And she wanted me to attend with her just for support. You never know. And I stayed quietly down the hallway in another room, just in case she needed to say to John, hey, time out. I need a break. And if she needed to come down the hallway to talk, I was there. And John just treated her with such class and dignity and sensitivity. I just was so grateful. And I didn't even know I thought she did good. And then from what I understood, and then when the interview came out, I thought, wow, this is really good. This woman's really articulate, but I didn't know she would be that articulate. And just her story was incredible. I just kept watching the views climb. And now, Steve, I think she's number 2 or 3 out of the most viewed. I mean, it's just crazy. And
didn't you help actually kind of facilitate that interview, even though you didn't want her to do it, or did he reach out to her? How did that go?
No. He reached out to her. No.
Okay.
Facilitate at all. No. And I wasn't, barring her from going in. I wasn't saying don't go in. I was just saying, Hallie, you really, do you want to wait a little while, because this is really new. This is happening so fast. John's a very respectful man, but he may ask you questions that you may not be willing to talk about. And he was just, he was just incredible. And it was a really great experience to be in the building and to drive home. And I believe I was crying driving home on Interstate 15, thanking God for the ability to live here so that I could sit down the hall while,
wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
wow. No, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's, wow. I guess I want to just ask you, one of the things, like I said at the beginning, was that Sandra Tanner told me about you. And then it took a few months, but then you and I were in contact with each other. And I just remember when our first conversation was like, oh yeah, we're both on the same page. Because I even thought, like, when I was doing something, I wonder what, so I didn't know your name. So I wonder what that girl, I kept on thinking, that girl in Utah, that Christian girl in Utah, I wonder what she's thinking about this episode or whatever. And when I talked to you, it was like, oh, good. We're very similar. But I really want to get back. I want you to talk about your relationship with Sandra Tanner and what she means to you.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to cry. I don't think I will.
Okay.
So I reached out to Sandra probably 2012, I think, wanting advice on how to get in contact with people in my area, if she knew anyone in my area that I could contact to help kind of facilitate me wanting to help people. And I wrote a couple of other people, and quite honestly, I thought that she would be the last person that would respond because she's probably so busy. And she was the first person to respond, gave me detailed information of who to contact. And that just meant so much to me. I was blown away at how hospitable she was. And I am sure that she is that way with everyone. But it really hit home to me as a female. Before I moved here, I was really hesitant to meet her. And then a friend told me, oh no, you need to go meet her. She loves people that have never been Mormon that care. I was like, oh my gosh, are you sure? Yes, go meet her. And what I don't tell a lot of people is I actually took a nerve pill before I met her because I was so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I admit it. Okay. She was just the most gracious woman. And we sat and we spoke for a while. And she was just incredibly supportive. I think my advice to her was, what do you do when you're so tired from just listening to people? And this was when I lived in Tennessee. And she said, well, I go next door and take a nap. I was like, yes, you do, Sandra. Yes, you do. Yep. I like that.
Right.
And
that's
then
great.
Here, so I realized the other day that she and I have been friends for, I think, that we met in 2014 or 15. So I think we've been friends for 7 and 8 years, like tangible. Mm-hmm. And since I've moved here, she has just been an incredible support system for me as a woman out here that is trying to serve Jesus in a land where there are not a lot of women doing what I am doing. And it's hard. It's hard because it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to be a woman. And I'm not trying to sound like a martyr, and I'm not trying to, pull the female card, that kind of thing, but it's not easy to be a woman out here, especially in a lot of times the Christian community. It's not hard. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not very meek. But I do what Jesus tells me to do. He's my boss. She has been an invaluable source of encouragement to me along the way. And, we joke about her being the GOAT, but she's been the greatest inspiration in my life as a woman in ministry, on how to love people and be frank. I adore her, and I love you, Sandra.
No, to you too, Sandra. We love you. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. I've talked to you before how, Sandra still has her fastball. She's still on top of the game, but she's getting up there, and she's irreplaceable. And I mentioned to you on a conversation, I think there's probably like dozens of people that would maybe take on her mantle. It would literally be dozens, not just one person. And I think you're one of those people that's going to take on part of her mantle. I feel like in some sense, I feel like a little bit of Gerald's mantle, because I think him and I have like a similar mindset. It was never about, it was all about just wanting to get the information out there and reading and studying and researching and let people then on their own decide what they want to do. So, and then, you know what, I'm going to say another person who's probably going to inherit her legacy. I was a little rough on you on my Mormon Stories interview, but Aaron Shalafalaf, you are probably going to be one of those people. And the reason why is because I want to honor you for putting out that YouTube channel where you have all of Sandra Tanner's old like TV appearances and stuff. So I want to give you props, Aaron Shalafalaf. I know you don't seem to care for me, but I want to honor you by saying that, you know, props to you for doing that. And I know Sandra was very touched by it as well.
Yeah, you know, and the thing is that I pray that I can be part of the group that carries on, you know, just by loving people. You know, I've got a huge section down there of the Black books. That's, you know, all the Tanner stuff that I try to hand out to people when they need it and that kind of thing. But, you know, the people I think that are going to take over, I hope, are a rich amount of people with different backgrounds that don't always agree on the same things. And I believe that's okay. You know, we are here to build bridges and have intellectual dialogue with critical thinking. So if I can serve as a small part in that, I am honored to do that even one day. So
yeah, so props to everyone. And yeah, this is quite an endeavor. It's an amazing thing what Gerald and Sandra built, and we want to honor them and what they've done. So I have to, so one of the things I have to talk to you about is you're also, now of course you mentioned you're interested in Scientology and other religious expressions, but you actually have quite a lot of knowledge and about snake handling. Pentecostal holiness snake handlers in Appalachia, I guess, right?
Well, yes. So growing up, part of my family was from Eastern Kentucky. And no, they were not snake handlers, but I do remember when I was young, you know, driving by, you know, this coal mining area. So very diverse group of churches. Most of them were, you know, I wouldn't say like Church of God, you know, what is the Christopher,
His is Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think it's necessarily Church of God. I think the word is Holiness Pentecostal. Probably they throw in Church of God at the end. I really don't know.
Yeah, they all do.
Yeah, they all have all different kinds of titles, every one, and they kind of sound the same. But the overall belief is what's called oneness. Oneness Pentecostal holiness. And so growing up, I really would go by churches, and I would always think when we were in the car, oh, I wonder if they snake handle in there. Oh, you know. And I don't know. I don't know. That was always a curiosity of mine, and just kind of like not necessarily a folklore, but it was always interesting to me. So I don't know what it was. It was probably in like 2012. They ran an article in Tennessee. They ran an article that went statewide about this family in Eastern Tennessee that did snake handling in their services. And there was a big lawsuit about, you know, whether they can have the right to do this or not as part of their religious belief. And I was just incredibly fascinated with it, in the middle of being fascinated with the Mormon Church. So yeah, it's just interesting to me. So I befriended a lot of these people on Facebook because that's their main mode of, like, you know, proselytizing is through Facebook. I instantly, after I read that, hopped on Facebook, and all these people accepted me as friends. And man, I went down a deep rabbit hole of just a different culture in and of itself. People were not hiding what they believed on Facebook. They would openly post pictures of them handling snakes during the service.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Did they also drink like poison in their services too?
Yes, it was the belief of Christopher Thomas will get this better. Not that I know he doesn't believe it, but I know he will get this right if you ask him. It's that, it's in the Bible. I don't know where, but
It's in the Mark.
Thank you. If you take up servants, you shall not be harmed. Believe it's like poison and then fire and all this kind of stuff. And around that time, right after the article went public, Nat Geo, National Geographic Channel, offered this church a reality show. And I thought it was incredibly well done. They left out a lot of personal life issues and focused mainly on their passion for believing that copperheads and serpent handling should be in the church. I thought it was incredibly well done. The documentary was called Snake Salvation, and it followed two different families. And unfortunately, one of those men has now passed away because he got bit and didn't refuse, he refused medical help, but he is in that documentary. And if anybody wants to see it, I highly recommend it. I think it's like 4 episodes and you can get it, I don't know, through Nat Geo, probably on Amazon. Again, I endorse it and I'm picky.
Okay. Good to know.
Can't handle it. Don't watch it if you can't handle snakes. So after the documentary aired and I became friends with this gentleman's wife, one of the pastor's wives, and a couple of people that went to church, my husband and I decided that we were going to go to a church. We were going to go to their church. Why not? It wasn't that far from us visiting in the Smoky Mountains. And we kept saying all the way up to pulling into the church, I can't believe we're going to do this. I can't believe we're going to do this. But they knew we were coming. So nice. They were not out to convert us or anything. They just knew why we were coming. They knew my intent, that my intent was to support their belief. If that's their belief, hey, we support you. As long as, I hate to say it, but as long as the snakes are taken care of, it really didn't bother me. When we walked in, I kid you not. Okay, I'm going to use an accent that's very Southern. Okay, I'm Southern anyway, but just picture this. We walk in and the gentlemen, they're like, welcome. Then they're young. We are so glad that you guys came. God bless you. Yeah, we've got serpents today. Yeah, we're going to be using them. Don't worry. They stay underneath the pew at the front of the church, which is where we were walking into, by the way. And he said, all that we ask from visitors and first-time people is that you just stay behind this yellow line. Just don't pass this yellow line. And it was like a yellow row of duct tape that was, you don't cross it because that's where the snakes are going to be with people holding them. Wow. And then I looked down and we said, that's not going to be a problem. We went to pretty much near the back of the church, and the church service lasted for, I guess, at least 3 hours. They kept going and going and going. And the cadence that the pastor used, it was just so predictable yet fascinating. And the music was incredible. One of the lyrics to the song, or one of the songs was, I got the devil under my feet. And they would, I got the devil under my feet, just, everything sounded, all the music sounded the same, but boy, did they have the Holy Spirit. And it was incredible, speaking in tongues. And then all of a sudden they whipped out the snakes. And we weren't scared because they stayed behind the yellow line. And we were way in the back by the exit door, and we just weren't worried. They didn't take them into the congregation. And this one gentleman, this was interesting. One of the things is if you touch something with fire, their belief is you will not be harmed. And this young man took a propane torch. I think that would be what it would be, a smaller propane torch. And, they're all hypnotized and the spirit. And they're hypnotized, and he's dancing around, and he takes a blowtorch and starts dancing, holding the torch up to his hand. And I thought, well, this ain't going to be good. I guess he'll be fine. And he walked back over to the pew on the side where the serpents were. And he did like this. He looked down at his hand and he went like that. And I was like, it harmed you, didn't it? But I didn't say that, but it was crazy. I don't think I'd go back again. Mike and I saw everything we needed to see that first time, and they were lovely people. And by gosh, we stayed behind that big yellow line.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this great story. Now, just before we wrap up, you actually want to acknowledge an author that acknowledged you.
Yes. During all this, during the publication, this author wrote the newspaper article that went, statewide about this family. And she had written a book. Julia, I think her pronounced name is Duin, Duin. And it's called In the House of the Serpent Handler. And I am credited, which was so kind. I was credited as one of the people that were helping to provide, serving as sounding boards and monitoring social media at times when she couldn't, and providing some pictures. And it was just so kind. I never expected that. But, my curiosity and obsession with certain faiths and sects, totally unexpected. And shout out to you, Julia, because that was super kind of you to do that.
That's so cool. It's so awesome. Before we wrap up, Allison, first of all, if people want to contact you, what's the best way to contact you?
The best way to contact me, I prefer, is through Facebook private messaging. It's much easier than email for me. So I'm on Facebook. I keep my friends list very limited because I am very private with people that I'm helping. So out of their privacy, just message me at Allison Biggers on Facebook. Send me a message and I will check it and get back to you as soon as possible. If anybody just wants to vent, I have some contacts in person or online that you can go to. And the people that I work with do not try to get anybody to leave the church. We are here to support you and even vent if you're a frustrated member, or if you're like a really big history nerd in the church. Hit me up because I would love to talk church history with you.
Great. This is great. That's interesting too, because, I've been hearing from people throughout the world. And, it's really interesting. Actually, a lot of women have been reaching out to me. And in a couple instances, they mentioned to me how they were kind of on their way out of the church, but they actually got re-engaged with their faith after watching my Mormon Stories interview, which, that's pretty interesting. You just don't expect what kind of results, what you're doing and what I'm doing. If you let the Holy Spirit operate through you and you try not to force people into a certain direction, but you just let them at least be able to engage what you're trying to do and have conversations, I think that then they're able to, wherever their journey leads them, we're not trying to tell them where to go.
No, it doesn't work when you do that the way. It's not, I don't subscribe to that. I do not, the restored gospel is not, so I'm open about the fact that it is not for me, but however I can support people is all that matters. So
cool beans. So, well, I think I want to wrap this thing up. I just want to ask you, do you have any final words you'd like to share with my audience?
Yeah, I'm just so thankful of everyone that I have met throughout the years. There's so many people that I could thank, and all the people in Tennessee and through the people that are in the fundamentalist faith, that some of my best friends that have allowed me and trusted me enough to let me into their lives is my reason for living. I am so grateful that Jesus has enabled me to be accepted into their community and loved and be loved by me Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
You did
And
it.
thank you for being patient, for having me on. It was time, a lot of people have asked me, they've always asked me, but it's gotten to the point where they're like, what do you do exactly? And so I don't know how many interviews I'll be giving after this. I don't anticipate a lot. I don't really want that, but it is time. And I knew that you are my never Mormon brother from a never Mormon mother. So I feel like if I don't believe in a pre-existence, but if I did, I think you and I would be siblings.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. So thank you so much, Allison, for coming onto the program today. You're the bomb. I think you're going to be a future goat. So
Jesus,
either way,
goat.
what's that? So repeat that.
Jesus is the goat.
Got it. All right. Well, folks, thanks so much for joining my program today and listening to Allison's story. Again, it's a pretty remarkable story, and it's just great to hear all these different voices. And this is what this channel is all about. So I just want to remind you to don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification button for when a new episode comes out. Our podcast is growing. We are on all the major podcast formats in addition to YouTube. About a quarter of my audience now is downloading, so we're getting a lot of downloads on that now. Very exciting. If you want to reach me, it's mormonbookreviews@gmail.com. If you wish to financially support the channel, you can go via Patreon or PayPal. I'll leave links in the description. I'm going to try to leave links for a lot of the books and things that we talked about in the description as well. And again, I look forward to hearing your comments. If you reach out to us, or if you have any comments about this video and this interview, I always love hearing from my audience. I just want to remind you to have yourself a great day and be well.